Hi, I'm Jeff Ginter with Real Progressives. Welcome to MMT Mondays. Today we're doing part two of the gold standard discussion with Steve and Ellis. So without further ado, take it away.
All right, so I want to talk about this just a teeny bit because obviously we've transitioned from.
Hey, Steve, look, it's different with us. We could say this show's about the gold standard, and we've talked about it here. People can review this and say, oh, so that's how the gold standard works. I already knew that. But now they're talking about something else. Hey, whatever.
What we do. Well, no, but this is a good trajectory here because people in the chat and stuff like that, they're into this and they're paying attention, and so they make a great point. And I want to piggyback on something you said to me in private chat that I'm sure you'd say in public too, and that is that we can't look backwards to go forwards. And as we look at the gold standard and we realize the inherent limitations on it, naturally people are trying to look off into the future. And so you've got people looking at Captain Kirk and, the resource-based economy, the Venus Project, Jacques Fresco, and so forth. And you said something to me very, very poignant. And this is maybe one of the most important things you've ever said to me, ironically. And you probably just said it off the cuff. But you said, you know what? We don't know what tomorrow looks like yet. We're sitting there trying to craft it today. And the reality is we don't know what tomorrow looks like. And we look at the job guarantee and we see some people that try and make it just, transitional work, as Mosler talked about. And then we see other people who look at that as a way of self-actualization and providing people a pathway away from the capitalists and so forth. So there's a whole bunch, an incredible amount of policy space here by which we can look at shaping our future. So, Jacques Fresco may have some folks. Ellis, you made the point. We can't even get people to understand our currency today. How in God's name are we going to get the same people to manage a resource-based economy? They're not even willing to accept the fact that their taxes are destroyed because they're too hell-bent on this digit being so precious, like gold. They're really trapped in that. How in the world are you getting anyone to transition to what we have today even, much less getting them to get rid of everything and suddenly be in a resource base? It is pure and unadulterated fantasy land. And I don't say that as a mean thing. I'm saying that in terms of you can't even understand the fact that taxes don't fund spending today. How in the world are you going to go to a moneyless resource-based economy? And mind you, you're in a pluralistic environment. You don't just have lefties that are sitting there in Birkenstock and smoking weed. Like, hey, that'd be great, but that's not the way it is. You're in a you've got the jihadis with their guns, yeah, and you got everybody else across the board you've got to contend with. So how do you get there? Think about it for a minute. This is what we're trying to do here at Real Progressives, is we are trying to maximize the self-actualization and lessen the misery as much as possible and give you the tools to fight today. And that was what was so powerful about what you said to me, Ellis, because it made me realize that the future's not yet written. We don't know what it's going to look like. And it could be really great if we choose to embrace it.
What's interesting is the founding fathers of the United States knew this. And what's interesting also at the same time is that people today have no frigging clue what the founding fathers knew. When they started the nation, and they got everything going, they created a constitution. They said, you know what? I have no idea whatsoever what the United States will look like in 250 years. Do you? And no, I don't know. Well, we could just imagine. Yes, but do you know? No. Well, we won't be around for 250 years. No, we won't. Better put a thing called amendments in there. What do you mean? Well, let people amend the Constitution so that they can modify it to future needs when the future arrives, you see. Oh, yeah, good idea. Okay, so the founding fathers gathered this. All right, there's no way to know what the future is going to look like, no way to know what the future economy is going to look like. So they left us with the ability to amend the Constitution so that the Constitution would move forward as the nation moves forward into the future. And you've still got people today thing. We got to get back to the Constitution. How far back do you want to go? Tricorn hats and muskets? I mean, come on. So, you know, it's interesting that these people can predict the past.
Oh my God! So, hey,
accuracy, but yeah.
Real quick, this is one of those ones, and this is not. I'm not even going to do the troll. This is what we're up against here. So let's go ahead and give him a starlight here. He believes that our monetary system is in essence capitalism, and therefore it's a cancer that will make us all go.
Is he aware that money's been around for 5,000 years?
Yeah, it's going to make us all extinct as a species. We don't abolish the monetary system, we all shall perish. Holy cowabunga!
Capitalism is not 5,000 years old. Okay, it's much young, much more youthful than that. Money's been around for thousands of years.
So why would he say this?
Because people on the far left think that capitalism is the problem. And to some extent, capitalism, a capitalist framework, is problematic. There's no doubt about that. If you, as a government, first of all, what Tom doesn't understand is that the government is the entity that operates the monetary economy, not the capitalist. Okay, what does Stephanie Kelton say? Money doesn't grow on rich people. All right, so let's get that clear. The dollar comes from the U.S. government. The U.S. government is the price-setting authority. It is the regulatory authority. Okay, it chooses to allow capitalism to operate. All right, but here's the thing: the government has the total authority to regulate it. The government has total command over the capitalist, because the government is the monopoly issuer of the one product that the capitalist demands more than anything else, and that's the dollar. The government has total control. Do not mistake deregulation. Do not mistake government choosing not to involve itself in its own economy that it created as capitalism has run amok. Capitalism is the problem. The problem is government is not doing its job as a currency issuing and regulatory authority. Okay? Capitalism itself can be problematic, or it can be modified by the government to be less problematic, or it can transform into something else entirely. It just depends whether or not it's so oppressive as people think or not. Entirely depends on what the government is doing, what it's allowing the private sector to do. Okay? I'm not sitting here saying capitalism is the greatest thing since sliced cheese. All I'm simply saying is the monetary system has zero to do with this, and capitalism can be controlled 100% by the US government like that. Because the US government is the monopoly issuer of the US dollar. The capitalist depends on the government to give it money, and the capitalist is subject to the sovereign government 100%. The government, politicians in the government, simply choose to allow the capitalist to be an asshole. It's really that simple.
You have told me that you would define yourself as a Kalecki socialist.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I'm supposed to understand that you're
not a Kalecki socialist. I'm a democratic socialist. I would define myself as that, yeah. And I'm big on Kalecki. You know, so if you think that I'm all about capitalism, you know, you're out of that. You know, you've lost that argument. As a matter of fact, I have socialist paraphernalia around. Yeah, look, it's just sitting right here. See, Democratic left there. See, oh look, socialism. Oh God, what did I? Oh, look at this. Towards freedom, democratic socialist theory and practice. You know, I was going to give this to somebody because they wanted to read that. Anyway, yeah. So you don't see any Freedom Heritage Foundation crap sitting on my desk. All right.
Oh God, we got to get rid of this. We got another end the fetter.
No, we don't have to get rid of them.
Someone has a fetish.
Someone has a fetish. Oh dear. The capitalist is controlling the government through X, Y, and Z. That may be true, but then again, it would be the people's fault for allowing the politicians to do that. And why do they do that? Well, Steve, we've talked about this before. People idolize politicians as Greek gods and celebrities and leaders rather than public servants. Okay, and it goes without saying, if you're going to blame the capitalist, you better blame yourself first, because you're the one that sits back and thinks, oh, well, I got a choice, Republican, Democrat. A vote for Jill Stein is a vote for Trump, and I don't want Trump, so I've got to go and vote for Hillary. Well, you vote Democrat, you vote Republican, you're voting capitalist. Hey, what can I say? You're either getting big business and all this crap with the Republicans, or you're getting Wall Street with the Republicans, Democrats. It doesn't matter. It's all big business, capitalist, moneyed interests. All right. If you don't want that, then you got to convince your neighbors to have them convince their neighbors, and so forth and so on, to get together and go out in the street and say, no, we're not voting for this shit no more. I'm not going to idolize Barack Obama and try to protect his legacy. You know, he's not a leader. He's a public servant. He acted like he was my boss, taking piss off. It's real simple. So, you know, you want to blame the capitalist, say, oh, the capitalist is doing this, the capitalist is controlling government, and blah, 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 and all that. Who made the capitalists rich? Not you. The government did. Why did the government do that? Because you elected politicians that said, supply-side economics is really good. And we agree with monetarism, so we're going to cut that deficit. All right, so there you go. Ultimately, it's Congress's fault, not the Fed. It's Congress. Congress is to blame. And so if Congress is to blame, I am to blame. Steve Grunbein's to blame. Everybody in America as a U.S. citizen, whether you voted or not, you are to blame. It ultimately rests on your shoulders. So if you want it to stop, you're going to have to get together in a majority and kick the bastards out and replace them with people who are willing to do as they're told. It's really that simple.
So let me ask you here, we're a little bit over time. What is it that you think in your mind, Ellis, is the key takeaway for people when they're presented with the gold buggers? What is it that our folks that are youthful in their MMT knowledge, what are the keys for them to be able to, like if you were to bullet point out how to slap, you know, the nonsense out of the gold bugs, what would be some of the key points real quick that they could take away from this?
Well, first of all, like we talked about, taxing and borrowing for revenue is obsolete with a fiat currency. All right. That only exists during a gold standard. There were three ways that the government could spend during the gold standard. You could tax, borrow, or print money. Print money, light bulbs should go off in the head. That's where it would crank out a bunch of cash and inject it into the economy. Okay, we don't do that today. The Federal Reserve doesn't even create the cash. The Federal Reserve itself doesn't create Federal Reserve notes. The U.S. Treasury's Bureau of Engraving and Printing prints the Federal Reserve notes. And cash today is based on consumer demand for cash. It has nothing to do with federal spending. When the federal government spends, it doesn't spend cash. It doesn't go, oh, we're going to print cash and then get an armored truck and start delivering it to different banks. It's not how the government spends. Okay. So in the majority of cases, the truth is, here's the truth. The truth is that almost all of you listening to us talk tonight know how the gold standard works. You just don't realize that how people tell you today's dollar works is actually how the gold standard dollar works. So now you know. There should at least be some aha moments here where everything I've been told about how the dollar works is actually how it used to work. So you understand the gold standard fairly well. The problem now is understanding the fiat currency. It works in the exact opposite way to a gold standard dollar. All right. So a fiat currency has no gold reserves. It has no other currency pegged to it. There's nothing to defend. There's no supply of anything to defend. The government, whether it's a gold standard or in a fiat regime, the government is always the issuer. And believe it or not, even in a gold standard, the government has an infinite supply of US dollars. It just, under a gold standard, cannot spend as much as it could under a fiat system. Okay? So, in a fiat system, taxes drive the currency like they always do. They create the demand. But in a fiat system, taxes reduce the spending power like they did in the gold standard. They modify behavior like they did in the gold standard. Okay. They create unemployment like they did in the gold standard. But what the federal taxes today in a fiat system do not do, as they did in the gold standard, was create revenue for the federal government. They're no longer revenue. The government simply extracts the dollars and destroys them and replaces them with new dollars spent. Every time the federal government runs a deficit, it's increasing base money supply. So in other words, it's increasing the number of dollars available. It can do that all the way up to the real ability of the economy to produce goods and services. That's how expansive the fiat currency is. So it's very flexible. Okay? And if I were talking to a gold bug, which I do on a regular basis, I would rather have a flexible currency that could guarantee an end to poverty and an end to involuntary unemployment, rather than make my dollar valuable for some reason, have intrinsic value for some reason when food is already valuable, and impose deflationary depressions and recessionary biases on all of my neighbors because they have weak trading positions, and run the risk of a depression ensuing in America and the US government not being able to address it properly because its gold reserves are depleting, but it's going to stay on the gold standard, but cannot in any way, shape, or form increase the amount of currency necessary to do anything about unemployment unless it does leave it or finds a way to get gold. Sure, it could try war, but it's going to have to pay for the war machine. That's very expensive. And unemployment's going to rise simply because nobody can pay for it. So the big question is, Steve, so the big statement, Steve, is this. When you're talking to a gold bug, how are you going to pay for that is a question during the gold standard. It's a gold standard question. How are you going to pay for that is a gold standard question. It's a Bretton Woods question. How are you going to afford that is a gold standard question. It's a Bretton Woods question. It's not a fiat question. It's not a modern question. That does not exist at the federal level anymore. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to afford that? The answer is real simple. In a fiat system, we will pay for it when Congress authorizes the spending. End of story.
Wow. I want to just say this. You got two great points here, and this is really makes me feel good about doing what we do, Ellis. Mark's comment right here is beautiful. He's saying, thank you both for your patience and going through this over and over again. We've been told all this stuff, and now we know. The other one, and I just want to say, this is going back to your neoliberalism discussion. Fantastic comment. I'll pull it back up here because it is worthy of being put on the board. Gregory Paul Smith said, that when you cut the deficit, it gives room for the bankers to fill the gap with credit that carries interest, making them richer. And that right there, my friends, is the comment of the day, even though it's not about the gold standard, really. This is a great, great point. This is neoliberalism's death grip on us right there. When you cut that deficit, it forces us into private debt, which we can never pay off, and it always makes the rich richer.
Yeah, you simply, basically, private debt, bank credit is an alternative to a dollar. It behaves like a dollar, except there's a debt attached to it that you have to pay back, okay, and it nets to zero. So what you're doing is when the government's slashing the deficit, you have a current account deficit, meaning that we're importing far more than we're exporting, and dollars are flowing out of the country. All right, well, guess what you got? You got the level of dollars in you got the level of dollars in the domestic economy that's sinking. And if the government is cutting its deficit too, the dollars are going to fall even further. There's going to be less and less dollars available for people to spend. So banks come along with an alternative, and they just fill that gap with an alternative to dollars called bank credit. You have to pay all that back. Well, when consumers can't pay it all back, and when consumers can't take on any more of this debt, they're just going to stop spending, which is back to our consumption point. When consumers stop consuming, unemployment rises because jobs are lost. Okay, because somebody's spending is somebody's income. That's what the far left doesn't get. All right, so when you can't spend on credit cards and loans anymore, you can't take it on anymore, you just stop. And when consumers on aggregate do, unemployment will rise because business income will fall. And the people that make out are the banks. Why?
Yeah.
Because you've got people like George Bush making it harder and harder to bankrupt credit card debt. Oh, isn't that clever?
These comments, Ellis, have got to make you feel good, though, because
I can't see them.
well, no, but I'm saying just these couple that I read off, because you know, as you sit there and you think about it, you know, we get slammed, and you know, you have to have thick skin to do this, because there's a lot of people out there that have a death grip on regressive ideas, and it really is very important for us to stress that as you say you're fighting neoliberalism, and then you say that you want to live in a neoliberal world by pushing away the cure for neoliberalism, which is modern monetary theory, which is what we're describing every single time we go on the air. When you see these people say that, you know that this is why we're fighting tooth and nail, because these people in their mind think that they're fighting the neoliberals. But guess what? If you get Tulsi Gabbard, suddenly you get Tulsi to come in there. And Tulsi comes in there telling you how she's going to pay for it. You know that Tulsi is living in a gold standard mindset as well, which is fueling neoliberalism. Do you understand why this is so important? It doesn't matter if we unite behind these people. If they're wrong, they're fucking wrong. And they're going to hurt us, whether you like them or not, whether they have the right sensibilities or not. If they don't understand the econ, they're going to destroy the economy. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, to go back to, I think it was, you said the fellow's name was Mark Collins with the first comment about people are told that fiat currency is fake money. Remember we talked about what a monetary system, monetary instrument is, you know, an issuer, a face value, and the issuer promises to accept it back as payment. The thing about fake money is real simple. During the gold standard, a gold standard dollar is a fiat dollar with gold attached to it. Does anybody figure that out? So you're basically saying that if you say that a fiat dollar is fake money, what you're saying is a gold standard dollar is fake money with gold attached to it. So I hope, you know, the gold bugs watching out there can swallow that hot iron bowl there and get it down, because it's going to burn all the way down. There's no way to avoid it. The government is the currency issuer, even during the gold standard. So the government has to issue a currency. That currency is issued by fiat, okay? But when you peg it to gold, you limit how many dollars the government can issue, right? So all you're saying is once again, if a fiat currency is fake money, then a gold standard dollar is fake money with gold attached to it. So why do you want, if you don't want fake money, guys, why do you want fake money with gold attached to it? Let's get some real money.
That's right. Oh my God. All right.
Yeah,
So
that's tea bag. It's real money. Okay.
speaking of tea bags, I'm sorry. I just couldn't help it. Oh.
Everyone a Maserati, let me tell you.
Oh my God. All right. So I'm going to thank you, Ellis. We'll work.
For what?
For being you, for coming back. Everybody, I'm not joking. I saw people doing the whole Dave Chappelle stuff. You know, you got any more of that Ellis video? Got any more of that Ellis video? They're like Jones and Skeets and Itch and stuff. You know, like, I need some Ellis. I'm not even joking. I swear on my life, man, we've had more inboxes going, is Ellis okay? Where's Ellis been? Is Ellis all right? We didn't see Ellis. Where's Ellis? So people are like, this is our favorite time of the week. Where's Ellis?
Well, it's too bad. It's too bad that we didn't get deep into the gold standard, but maybe next broadcast or something, we can like pick a topic that you know, the people, that be an eye opener for people, and we can go deep into it. Maybe do a longer presentation. You know, maybe even get the whiteboard out, and if I can stand up.
Can you draw nuggets of gold on there? Like, Different colored gold bug.
No, I could care less about gold myself. Silver too. I just don't give a shit. You know, silver tarnishes.
Well, you know,
like
it's the only thing I care about is this silly ring right here. It's the only piece of jewelry I have. And it's because on one side, it's got my Master of Science, because, you know, everybody asks what my creds are. There's my MBA. Ooh. And there's my Master of Science. And that and a bag of chips gives me a bunch of debt. I had to unlearn most of it.
You know, the only thing that silver means to me is that I can stick it in my earlobe, and I won't have to worry about getting an infection because it's, what is it, hypoallergenic or something like that. You know, so beyond that, fuck it. You know, I really don't care. And if people think that, you know, digging commodities out of the ground in order to support your currency is more important than addressing unemployment, you know, I mean, move to the moon, man. We've got issues we got to deal with here. You guys go to the moon, move there. Peg your fucking currency to air.
What I want to say is, what could be more important than single-payer healthcare so people aren't going bankrupt and dying without healthcare? What could be more important than saving our environment and going ahead and transitioning to green energy so that we don't have cataclysmic death?
Two things about that. Some people will say those aren't economic concerns. They most certainly are.
Absolutely.
The universal healthcare, people say, well, that's a human right, and human rights aren't exactly economic. No. It's a human right. That's guaranteed. But it's also an economic concern, because a healthy workforce is a happy workforce. A healthy population is a happy, productive population. Okay, it's very important. And two, when it comes to green energy, people don't realize this, but when we shift output to sustainability, we actually kick open the door for production. We're not enclosed and cloistered in this little room anymore. You kick open the door to a new form of production. And when you do that, the economy can begin to grow again. Because in the fossil fuel industrial revolution sense of production like we're doing right now, we're boxed in. We're about as far as we can go. You can't keep growing the economy endlessly without something collapsing. But if you shift production, if you shift output to sustainability, suddenly you kick the door open wide, and all of a sudden the economy is allowed to grow again. You can actually expand once more. You know, and so yes, it's an economic concern. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Keith, and this maybe is something we can talk about at another time, but this might be a really quick one. Keith asks, can you explain what happened when they degraded the U.S. AAA credit rating in MMT terminology in an upcoming episode? Thanks.
I can do it now.
That's what I was going to say. I figured it was really quick.
Yeah, nothing. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. That's MMT terminology. Nothing happened.
Exactly. I know that's a Warren Mosler answer if I ever heard one.
Well, it's true. Nothing happened. I mean, what more do you want? I gotta get more technical.
Well, see, they'll write a long article by Paul Krugels that will talk about this stuff. And so the question really comes down to is that they position this stuff as, oh my God, all of a sudden we are no longer a credit-worthy nation. What really happened was that Congress failed to act on its constitutional demand of paying its bills on time. So as a slap on the wrist, they went ahead and played with the credit rating. It meant absolutely nothing. But it was a show. It was big theater.
It's theater in a sense, because what it's all designed to do is get the government to cut its expenditure, to get it to cut the deficit. That's it. That's all it is. Okay, it's a simple trick to get governments to continue slashing the deficit. And the fact is they'll tell you, oh no, if we lose our AAA rating, the cost of borrowing for government will go through the roof. And what they don't tell you, because they don't realize this, is that government can control the interest that it pays on its bonds across the entire yield curve, not just short term but long term too. All right, government is in complete charge. Why is that? One, government issues the dollar that are used to buy the bonds, and two, government issues the bond. Government will pay whatever it decides to pay, and if it thinks, oh well, you know, it's going too high, blah blah, well, it just buys it. Central bank just sucks up more treasuries, and guess what? Yield curve narrows. The AAA rating bullshit means nothing. It isn't. It means not. It would mean something in Greece, believe me, or Germany or France, because these debts are real and there's some serious problems there, you know. But in America, Australia, Canada, a credit rating of a sovereign government is one of the most worthless wastes of time ever conceived by man's brain, next to taking a stick and poking it in a pile of dog shit. I would think that credit rating of a sovereign government is one of the dumbest endeavors man has come up with.
I want to say this, and I think this maybe is a good way to close out the gold standard conversation, at least for tonight. You know, Joy brings up a great point. Why do they continue to lie to us? And, you know, and I've said this in many of my solo streams, and I've heard different people say it on the interviews as well. And the bottom line is politicians are not here to change the world. Politicians are here to get elected. And if you don't understand economics, if the vast majority of the guys sitting there with the Smith & Wesson and stuff believe that their household checkbook is the way that the finances are, and they can't understand why the government can go ahead and do this, but we can't. Okay, if you're sitting there and that's the going narrative of Joe Q public voter, then they are not out to change your mind. They are out to literally get reelected. So if all of a sudden the growing narrative was that MMT was the way to go, guess what our politicians would start to do? Any ideas? I'm pretty sure you know the answer to that. The bottom line is it's up to us to change them. They're not going to change us. They're going to say what they think we want them to say because they are not trying to disrupt the apple cart. You saw Bernie Sanders. He was labeled pie in the sky, crazy commie. Look at this fruitcake. You know, he wants to spend all this money. Where's it going to come? How are we going to pay for it? All this shit. They did that, and you sat there and bought it hook, line, sinker, especially the Hillbots out there. Well, you know, Bernie's just going to run the deficit up, and he's going to run the debt up, and da. You know, this is why. And it worked to perfection. So, anyway, I mean...
you know, the question, I get that question a lot that you were just trying to answer. Why do our politicians continue to lie to us? Why do they continue to lie to us if this is the truth? Here's what I would say. Back a long thousands of years ago, when the Buddha himself was about to die, he received a visitor. And his assistant thought that maybe the Buddha was too weak because he was about to die, too weak to receive visitors. But the Buddha heard the voice and he said, "Tell him to come in." And he had a question for the Buddha, and he says, "Oh, world-honored one, I just want to ask you one question." And he asks him a question very similar to this one. He says, "Why do our politicians..." This isn't the question he asked, but it's the same thing. You know, why are our politicians lying to us? Why do they keep doing this if this is the truth? You know, just a question. And the Buddha, realizing that he didn't have very long to live, he only had a few minutes maybe, he didn't want to waste precious time answering a question that really wasn't going to get any results. So what he said was, instead of pondering this question, instead ponder the fact that there is suffering and there's a way out by following the noble eightfold path and the Four Noble Truths. And that was it. And this is what I would say in response to that question in the very same way. I'm not saying I'm the Buddha, I would say in the same way. Whether or not the why behind why politicians continue this or why people continue to say to us things that aren't true doesn't matter. Finding out, what if we all found out tomorrow why people are lying to us and have been lying to us? What good would that do? Nothing. But what we do know is that MMT is a hyper-accurate description of how the monetary system works today. This is reality. It's better to concentrate on the reality and concentrate on the solution itself rather than wondering why people are doing this to us. The reason being, because if we educate enough people and we move forward enough and we get enough momentum going, it will no longer matter why they're lying to us because they will be gone. They'll be replaced and that will be the end of that. Then you could leave it, I guess, if you wanted to prosecute these individuals, you could leave it for the court to get the answer to the question. But the question itself is virtually meaningless to what really needs to be happening. We need to focus more on educating people and moving forward rather than why people are lying to us. You know, because even if we found out why they were lying to us, it wouldn't do us any good. We'd still have 9.2% unemployment. It wouldn't cause the American public to stand up and go crazy because they're always going to be in a malaise. The only thing that seems to get them out of malaise is when people hear MMT and begin to understand it and the light bulbs start going on. More and more people. Just 5 years ago, just 5 short years ago, people were ignoring MMT or going, yeah. Now they're coming out of the woodwork. They're attacking us right and left. So you know that the bombers are over the target. You know what I'm saying? We're making an impact now because people are taking the fact that MMT, the people that are doing the lying, they're realizing that MMT is being taken seriously by the people. And it's become a danger to the mainstream argument, okay? So that's what matters. Educating people, getting the truth out there and understanding it and educating yourselves and continuing to learn so that you can advocate and you can go out and be a good activist for what you want and get more people into this and leave the why about why people are lying to us. Leave that for the day when we have time to actually find out, even if it does matter. I don't know if it will in the future or not. We'll probably be so satisfied with prosperity that we really don't care anymore. But there will be people maybe that want to prosecute these people. Leave it for that time. Right now, we need to focus on getting the message out and keep educating people and move forward. So I want to make it clear before I get out of here. I'm not scorning someone. I'm not condemning them, and I'm not giving them a slap on the wrist saying, you asked a bad question. That's not what I'm doing. What I'm simply doing is trying to refocus your thinking. Let's get back in the fight, educate people, and let's leave, questions that don't need to be answered, that won't get us anywhere. Just leave them off there because really, be honest. Obama lied. He did a lot of lying for 8 long years. Does it matter if we find out why? No. It is not gonna feed a homeless person. It isn't gonna shelter a homeless person. It isn't gonna give anyone a job. It's not gonna do anything. So it's a pointless endeavor to even pursue the question, is what I'm saying.
I run into an awful lot of people that tell me that, they have to beat down Bernie or they have to beat down this politician. We've got to do all these, they've got to do 100,000 things before they ever touch any of the things we're talking about. When the reality is that without what we're doing right now, there is none of those 100,000 other things. And I'm glad that people are starting to wake up, that all the other things are noise until we get people understanding this. Because we shouldn't even have to talk about MMT. MMT just is. That's how great the lie is.
I would agree with that. I don't think that we shouldn't even be discussing this right now. What you and I should be discussing is policy decisions based in reality that have a chance of actually doing something. But yet here I am trying to explain why Social Security can't run out of money. I've told people that before. They asked me, so why don't you deal with advanced topics? Why don't you deal with macroeconomics topics, graduate level stuff on your blog? And I said, I would love to. And I told this person, I would love to talk about a current transactions matrix, which is not graduate level, but what it is, and stock flow consistent modeling. But I've still got people thinking that Social Security can run out of money. I've got to prioritize here. So, I'm constantly talking about the basics over and over and over again.
No choice. Yeah, until that's how pervasive the lie is. Mm-hmm. And that is and that's why these politicians, well, that's my opinion anyway. Mm-hmm. Anyway, with that, we could go through this 1,000 times over again. Ellis, and we will, by the way. Ellis, thank you very much for your time again tonight. I wanted to let you know, I don't know if you caught my text the other night, but I got Stephanie Kelton to consider coming on. She said the next 2 weeks are going to be tight, but This is like,
Yeah, yeah.
my first time meeting her, I felt like I was in front of like a rock star and my knees were weak and all. And she turned out to be just another human being, but she was awesome. But I also got to meet Pavlina and Joe Firestone and James Galbraith and a whole host of other really good people that day. And so it's kind of exciting. But then Thursday night this week, I have another pleasure. We're bringing back L. Randall Ray yet again. So once again, folks, we're going to keep bringing you economic truth as often as possible. Ellis and I will work it out. We'll figure out what we're doing next Sunday. Joe Firestone and I will work it out, figure out what we're doing next Saturday. And by the way, just so you know, April Fool's Day, I'm turning 48. So that is going to be a special. We'll talk about fool's gold on my birthday.
Yeah. I love that gold.
Couldn't be a more appropriate birthday, huh?
Yeah, gold. I'll Peter Schiff call you.
All right.
Wish you have a birthday.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to say enjoy your Earl Grey, sir. Thank you again, and have a good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us at Real Progressives.
Hi, welcome back. I'm Jeff Ginter. So what did you think? They definitely covered a little bit more ground than just simply the gold standard. But again, one of the things I really appreciate about what they mentioned is we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. We have no idea what the challenges of the future are going to be long term. We certainly know we have to deal with climate change. We certainly have a lot of challenges right now. But there's no guarantee that something even bigger on the horizon is going to come 10 years from now. Let's say we actually do fix climate change. 10 years. Got that one out of the way. But now God only knows what. We don't know. And that's the point. We need to start thinking in a whole different way. We need to stop having shackles around us telling us that we can't do big things. Because we can. And if we actually remove those shackles, we can dream big, we can reach for the stars, we can do whatever it is that we imagine we can, as long as we have the resource capacity to do it. We have the ability to match the demands of the future. But not if we don't start planning, not if we don't start acting like that's true. I'll be back next week.